My name is Kirsten Tibballs and I'm an ambassador for KitchenAid. I'm going to create an absolutely delicious lemon tart. To create the lemon tart, I'm using the KitchenAid food processor, the KitchenAid ProLine blender and the KitchenAid stand mixer. Shortbread is really easy to make when you're using the food processor. Shortbread's something that if you overwork it, it can be really tough and it can shrink. Making a dough in the food processor means that it mixes so quickly and efficiently that we don't overwork the gluten, which is present in the flour. I have the dough blade and I'm using the largest bowl. I'm going to place butter. I always prefer if the butter comes straight from the fridge, but I dice it so it's easier to mix it together. And some sugar. I'm using some caster sugar. I'm going to combine those two together until there's no more lumps of butter before adding the remaining ingredients. Now that that's all come together and I've got no lumps in the butter, I'm going to add the eggs in next. Now I'm going to add in the flour. I love this because it's such a wide chute that you don't actually have to take the lid off at all. We've got some baking powder. Now the pastry that I'm using in this lemon tart is really simple to create because we just roll a flat disc. But a flat disc can be quite dense to actually break into. By adding all this baking powder, it's going to make the dough really light and crunchy. So the baking powder we're adding in now, followed by the salt. Now I'm going to continue mixing that. As soon as it comes together to a dough, we're going to turn it off. You don't want to overwork it and develop the gluten. That has come together beautifully. This pastry is ready to roll straight away because we're not lining the sides of a tart ring. I can simply roll it out and cut it. Now I'm going to lightly dust the bench and I'm only going to roll out a small portion of the dough at a time, and then I'm going to mix my scraps back in with the fresh dough to ensure that I don't overwork it. So just lightly dusting the bench just with plain flour. Dust the surface of the pastry. And then we're just going to roll that out. Rolling this to about 8 millimeters in thickness. Now I'm using a tart ring, but this is exactly the same dimensions as an egg ring. And I'm going to use this ring to actually cut the tart. No grease is required, and I'm going to put it straight onto a line tray. Now with the scraps, rather than kneading them up, I'm going to take another chunk of pastry and I'm going to put the scraps together with the fresh pastry. Always like to do this so my pastry is going to be really light and crunchy. If we overwork the dough at all, it becomes a little bit chewy and it shrinks. So once again, we add a tiny bit more flour, both on the base and on top, and we just gently roll that out. Now, if it becomes too soft at any stage, you can simply place it back in the fridge for about 20 minutes before rolling again. How easy are these tarts? Just by simply cutting the mixture out. We've got a perfect tart base in which to place our lemon curd. This is called a Breton shortbread. And a Breton shortbread is renowned because it lifts a little bit on the sides and it drops in the center. So it gives us a tiny bit of a dip in the middle of the tart. If you have any leftover pastry, I freeze it, then I grate it over some stewed fruit to make my own crumble. We're going to bake these at 170 degrees for 12 to 15 minutes or until golden brown. What's important to remember is as soon as they come out of the oven, you need to run a knife around the edge of the ring to ensure that the tart shells are not going to stick while it's still hot. We're doing the lemon curd for our lemon tart. Now with the ProLine blender, it is so easy. I make custards, ganaches, and of course this lemon curd. The beauty of this is it doesn't actually have a heating element, but it generates so much friction that it actually cooks the ingredients. The best part is that you can just add it all in. So I'm going to place the sugar in, followed by the whole eggs, egg yolks, lemon zest, and lemon juice. I'm going to place that on high speed for 3 minutes. We're going to place it on the speed that we want, and then we press start. Now that is really noisy, but so effective. Look how hot that becomes. It's amazing. Oh, wow. So beautiful and creamy. And all the ingredients just placed in together. It's exactly the same when we're making a custard, even a starch custard. It all just goes in and you put the lid on and turn it on. It's very simple to clean as well. We simply place it back onto the base, put some water in it, and we put it on the wash cycle. We're now going to whisk in by hand some butter. So we add the butter in a piece at a time. The butter helps to intensify the flavour, and it's also going to firm up the consistency. It's still very hot at the moment, so as this cools, it becomes a beautiful creamy curd. Now that we've added in all the butter, we're going to set this aside in the fridge to cool completely. I'm going to put cling wrap so it touches the surface of the lemon curd while it cools. It's best to let this sit for about 4 or 5 hours before placing it on top of our tart shell. Now I only place this on top of the tart shell as close to serving as possible so that the shortbread doesn't become soft. The shortbread has just come out of the oven. So while it's still warm, I'm just going to run the knife between the ring and the shortbread to ensure that it's not going to stick. You can see how it dips in the centre, which gives us a little bit of a cavity in which to put our lemon curd. Look at that. That's what the baking powder does, is it gives us that beautiful aeration. So when we go to break into that with a spoon, it's crunchy but really light. I'm going to set these aside to cool completely, and I'm going to whip some cream to garnish our lemon tarts with. Now for whipping the cream, ensure that your cream is really cold. Place it into the bowl. If you're working in a warm kitchen, I would recommend chilling the bowl as well. We're going to use the whisk attachment. Add a little bit of sugar in for a little bit of sweetness, and I'm going to whip that up till it's fully whipped. The cream is whipped. Now the part that I love, the finishing. I'm going to just serve up 3 of the tarts. I'm going to give them a generous scoop of lemon cream. This cream is quite soft. You can add a little bit of extra butter if you want a little bit firmer, but I like it like this. It's so creamy. But put the lemon cream on as close as possible to serving the tart. A little bit of fresh cream on top. Now what I have here is some shredded coconut that I've rubbed some yellow colour through, and I'm going to use that as a garnish, just a little sprinkle on top. Absolutely delicious lemon tarts, made easy with KitchenAid appliances.